Cardinals continue their season undefeated 2-0 on the year with a 5-1 victory over the Twins. This is Cards Hub Postgame, sponsored by Hot Shots. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Ethan Hannaford. And Ethan, I know you were down at the ballpark early before things got underway. It was a gloomy day. Really wasn't sure when we were doing the pregame show if things would get in the way that they did on time today. But they took the tarp off. They played the game, and Eric Fedde was he was shining bright today on a gloomy day in St. Louis.
That is a polite way, or that's a great way to put it, I should say. Eric Fedde ends up throwing 6 innings, as well as on top of that, 2 hits allowed, 1 earned run, no walks. I think that may have been the part I was the most excited about. No walks for this Cardinals pitching staff as a whole. 2 strikeouts and only, what did I see, 70? Oh, where is it at? 70.
It was only like 76, I thought. 73. Yeah.
73 pitches thrown today for Eric Fedde. So extremely efficient stuff. You know, if you would have told me that Cardinal pitchers within the first week of the season, this first time through, were going to be getting through 6 innings before the season started, 2 things. One, I would have been very happy. I also would have been a little bit surprised, though, because I mean, in today's day and age of baseball, 5 to 6 innings is pretty average length for a starter, but that's taking into consideration that they're throwing usually between 85 and 95 pitches on average. So for Eric Fedde to do that on 73 pitches today, extremely efficient, was around the strike zone all day long, and did not allow a hit after the Castro double down the right field line in the 2nd inning. He was very sharp today, and when you have good pitching, you know, they talk about next day's luck is only as good as that day's starting pitcher, and that most definitely showed today for the Cardinals. The offense took a little while to get going. Joe Ryan is a very good starting pitcher. That showed today. They were able to get to the bullpen, but you know, they don't get to that point if Eric Fedde doesn't have the outing that he does to keep them in the mix there for the first 5-6 innings of that game.
18 total outs for Eric Fedde as he went 6 innings today in the game. Only 2 strikeouts, so he was effective. You don't throw about 11 pitches per inning, 12 pitches per inning the way he did, without letting the bats hit the ball and letting your defense do the work behind you. And that's exactly what he went out there and did today. And that's going to, if we see that Eric Fedde as the year goes on, again, that, you know, I was a little surprised when they took him out in the 6th, but I think right now Ollie is wanting to, I don't want to say show off this bullpen that he has, but I think you could, you know, definitely see that this is going to be a fun bullpen late in games. But I think what we wanted to see was, okay, you know, you got it, you got through it. Hey, 5 days or 6 days rest. We'll get you your next turn of the rotation. Let's get Ryan Fernandez in there. Let's get JoJo in there. You could tell that he was wanting to get some of those arms in there and do their jobs late in the game the way that they did. And the bullpen too, very effective.
Yeah, I have to imagine that the cap that they were going to be willing to go with, the limit for Eric Fedde today, was probably around 75 to 80. I don't know if a number was announced, but based off of what it was for Sonny Gray and kind of they're still ramping up these guys, I have to imagine that's probably in the mix for where it was. So could you have started him out there in the 7th inning? Yes, but I think that Ollie Marmol's trust in his bullpen is strong enough to where there wasn't a need to do that. Eric Fedde was very sharp today. The bullpen looked good as well, and no complaints as far as how things went today for the Cardinals on the defensive side. You mentioned it. We talked about how last year went for this Cardinals pitching staff, and the reason that it did have a lot of success is there wasn't a lot of strikeout stuff last year. There was more than there had been in previous years with Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn there, but even still, there was a lot of pitch to contact, and that worked so well because the Cardinals had such a great defense, and that most definitely showed once again today. The great diving play by Lars Nootbaar at the beginning of the game. I don't know if you saw the replay, but it was classic Newt with the tongue sticking out. That was picturesque right there. Someone needs to get that printed out.
I think they did. I think I saw on the Cardinals Instagram page, I think they have a picture of him sliding with the tongue out. So I do somebody grab that. Yeah.
Good, as they should.
Cardinal photography has just been on fire early in the year with Nolan Arenado at the dugout with the hand to the ear.
Yes.
And now that it's been a strong start for a lot of different aspects of the St. Louis Cardinals LLC organization.
The social media has been killing the game, no doubt, to start off the season. But
we got Brendan Schaefer just sniping from afar. I don't know where he is this year, but he could where he is this weekend. But I know he couldn't be on the schedule. But he's making sure to tune in wherever he can, as well as you can too, anywhere, and comment and get in on it with that. We'll get to Ciani and the roster moves in the ninth, but yes, Michael Ciani also with a very nice defensive play in the ninth inning to do that. Yes. And I don't know. And then this too, again, I don't know when I gotta, he might get scheduled on Monday now to do a show because I don't know where this comes from either about trading Fedde, because I really, again, I never wanted to trade. Is that you? Is that geared towards you, Ethan, that you wanted to trade Fedde?
No, I said it. I said at one point that there's no doubt that there's like people asking about Erick Fedde, and I understand why people want Erick Fedde to be traded. But I was also one that said that, Erick Fedde is a guy that if you're going to trade him, he's probably going to be worth. The demand for him is going to be higher at this year's trade deadline than it is now. I'm a firm believer in wait till the deadline if you have a guy in most situations. So I understand why people wanted to trade him, but he most definitely proved his value, and that $7.5 million a year that you're paying him, boy, does that feels like a much better deal when he pitches like he did today. Rather than, not that it was bad last year with the Cardinals, but I don't think it was quite to the level that it was with Chicago. And yeah, it's going to be fun to keep an eye on Erick Fedde, and Brendan Schaefer most definitely taking his victory lap. And we
I don't know who I was always I was a fan of the trade last year when they went out and got Fedde. I was glad they kept him this year. If anything, the only thing that I was against, I would have been against if you would have told me Fedde was starting game 2, was I said from the beginning last year, this is at the end of last year, I said I wanted Michael McGreevy to be my number 2 starter, and I've been saying that since last September. So that's the only thing that I would have against Fedde being my day 2 starter, my game 2 starter for the Cardinals this year, is that I want McGreevy to be here, but I think he had a rough outing down in Memphis yesterday. So I will I'll keep those I'll keep those
it's a long season. It's a long season, Joe. It's a long season. But yeah, the defense was very good today. Lars Nootbaar, that diving play early in the ball game. We saw Wilson Contreras make a nice diving play over at first. Talk about Wilson Contreras. Man, does he look comfortable at first base or what? I think that he, through the first couple of games, has looked really sharp. Once again, everything we're talking about is a newborn baby sample size right now. I mean, it is so small. But regardless, I think Contreras has looked pretty comfortable over there at the new position. Mason Wynn had a great double play, turned up the middle, diving to his left, flipped it on to Donnie, and they turned the twin killer there. So the defense, once again, looked sharp. It's going to have to continue to stay sharp if the Cardinals want this pitching to be effective like it was last year. But through 2 days, it has looked sharp on the pitching and defensive side for St. Louis.
Yeah, and as I'm trying to get a picture up here for you right now, Ethan, MLB just tweeted this out. Lars Nootbaar with the tongue out. So wanted to make sure I saw that, because I right now you're talking about Wilson Contreras. I am scrolling through Twitter feverishly at the moment, waiting to see. I don't know if the clubhouse is opened yet. But I am waiting to see if the clubhouse has opened, because I want to hear. I want to hear from Wilson Contreras. I want to see who down there is going to tweet out Wilson Contreras' comments after the game, because, as you mentioned, he makes the nice defensive play. He looks very comfortable over there at first base. I need to hear what happened with the tape. I need to hear what happened with Wilson Contreras biting the tape off the bat and chewing it and eating it in the, what was it, the first inning, second inning, or very early in the game today when he did that. I need to hear what happened. And that he made a new bobblehead today. That's what happened. Is we'll be getting that at some point this year. You're muted for right now, Ethan. You got to unmute. There you go.
That's an important part of this. That was such a funny thing because Chip Carey on the broadcast made a comment where he said, and Wilson chews on the tape. And I was like, but I wasn't looking. I was like, that's a new one. I've never heard that one before as an aspiring broadcaster. I'm like, okay. And then he said, and he's going to keep on chewing as he walks back to the dugout. He struck out. And then they showed the replay. I'm like, oh, he literally like started chewing on his bat tape. That one is already going viral all over Twitter. Barstool's gotten a hold of it. John Boy's gotten a hold of it. So I have a feeling we're going to be seeing that one around for the next couple of days. But that was quite an interesting moment early in the ball game.
If anybody out there watching, if you see comments on Twitter after the game, if anybody tweets that out, Katie Wu or anybody else that's in the clubhouse, please share those comments with us, and we'll do our best to get those up on the screen for everybody else that's watching here on Cards Hub Postgame here on Sports Hub STL. Still the undefeated first place Cardinals in the game today. And you mentioned it. You were talking about how Joe Ryan was so difficult to kind of get to. And they were getting guys on base, but they really weren't doing much after that. They weren't able to get those key hits. Twins go to the bullpen, and Nolan Arenado they called it a double. He gets credited for a double with that first at bat where he hits the line drive off the tricep, off the arm of the Twins' first relief pitcher, goes into the outfield, and Nolan ends up at second base. I mean, no errors on the play, so yeah, technically it is a double. And you could tell it seemed like he was very, very uncomfortable the rest of the time he was out there. The pitcher stays in the game for the Twins, and it didn't seem like he had any kind of lights out stuff. And that seemed to be where the Cardinals started to put it together offensively. And that's when they pulled away in the game. So that definitely was a key moment when the Twins were forced to go to their bullpen. And then it kind of speaks to, we've talked about this, and we were texting about it, and we were talking about it after the game on Thursday. The approach at the plate, the game plan at the plate, you see that this is a very well-prepared team through 2 games now. This year, it seems like they're going out there with a plan, and so far executing it quite well.
Yeah, I'll start off with Jorge Alcala and him taking that one off the shoulder. That's a tough break for the Twins because that was anyone's ball game, and then he gets hit, and all of a sudden – I think that Minnesota, they're probably going to look at that and they're going to say hindsight's 2020. We probably should have taken him out there because he threw. I think the next batter was 4 straight, and I think it was Burleson. It was 4 straight. They put him on base, and all of a sudden,
and then Herrera swings at the very first pitch after that. I hated that so much in the moment, but continue.
Yeah, so I mean that kind of put them in a tough spot. And Herrera, fortunately, able to still come through. 2-strike hitting once again was a huge thing today for the Cardinals. Talk about just the ability to put contact on the ball. The team has looked really solid in that sense through the first 2 games of the season. But yeah, I mean, the tough break there for Minnesota, but they're able to the Cardinals are able to take advantage of an unfortunate situation. But yeah, the at-bats have completely looked, I would say, what's the word I want to use here? They've just looked like better quality overall. Listen, I expect for Lars Nootbaar, for Brendan Donovan, Nolan Arenado to take good quality at-bats. Like that's where the expectation is for me. But when you have some of these young guys up there like Mason Wynn, Jordan Walker, Victor Scott, that are taking that quality of ABs, Ivan Herrera, I'll throw in there as well. These guys are working deep counts. They're not chasing pitches outside of the zone. I think that the at-bat that I was the most impressed was, I believe it was during that 6th inning when Jordan Walker worked a full count walk, but he was in the hole early. I think it was 0-2 or 1-2, and he laid off several sliders or breaking pitches outside. He swung at one early in the at-bat, and then he held off the next several. They clearly were trying to go back to it on purpose, and he showed great discipline. That right there, I think, was the moment in the game where I was the most like, okay, wow, that's clearly a difference from last year and what we saw from Jordan Walker, where he's swinging at every single one of those pitches last year. So that was really encouraging to me. The Cardinals were working deep at bats, fighting off pitches, putting the ball in play, and it worked to their advantage today. And they're able to tack in 3 runs in that 6th inning that was highlighted by Lars Nootbaar and that 98.7 mile per hour fastball that he smoked back up the middle, hit that one 111.7 off the bat. It was by far the hardest hit ball of the day, and ended up really kind of being the nail in the coffin in this one. Once you get to this Cardinals bullpen, it's tough to get anything on them. I'm not just saying that based off of this year. I'm saying that based off of last year. But I'll say this too. Joe Ryan, solid pitcher, but kudos to this Cardinals team for getting to the Twins because they have a really high quality bullpen as well, and did not prove to be an issue today for the Redbirds lineup.
This is Cards Hub Postgame, not Twins Hub Postgame, but I think if our friends at Score North, I think if they were doing a postgame show right now, I think there'd be a lot of questioning about Rocco Baldelli going to Johan Duran in the bottom of the 8th inning in the game today, because as Chip Carey mentioned on the broadcast, over a 5 ERA last year when he was not pitching in safe situations. When it comes to closing out games, Duran is one of the best in baseball. That 103 fastball is electric, and to top that off with what it was at a 96 mile an hour splitter with 15 inches of movement is what they were talking about today. It's almost unhittable. But it really seems like he is a guy who needs to be in a mindset of, I'm getting 3 outs to win the game right now. Anything else is not there for him. And the Cardinals went out and forced him to throw about 25 pitches in the game today. And you wonder if it's a situation tomorrow where they need him, how effective he might be. And now the Cardinals also got a chance to see him too. A lot of hitters got to see Duran pitch today and got a chance to see what kind of stuff he has in case they do have to go up against him tomorrow. Now,
that's an interesting thought, because the Twins did use 6 bullpen pieces today, and I'm not sure how many they used yesterday. So it is odd to use Duran in that situation, because it's not a situation where, as far as going for a save that you need him, you're down by 3 runs. But at the same time, I'm wondering if that was more so, like I said, I don't know off the top of my head how many they had to use yesterday. They had to use at least
4. They went through 4 yesterday or on Thursday. Varland, Sands, Jackson, Topa.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It was 2 days ago. Like,
2
you
days
had the day
ago.
off.
That's
Yeah,
a
you
good
had
point. It was
and
2
that's
days
the thing.
ago, not
you had
yesterday.
the day off.
Yeah, that's a good point. That doesn't help Rocco Baldelli anymore, because I was thinking it was yesterday. It was 2 days ago. So
for a manager that might have one of the hottest seats in baseball right now too, that's not helpful.
Yeah, no, that does not help at all. So that makes me question it even more going to Duran in that situation. I completely back you. Like I said, everything's running all together now. So I was thinking that was yesterday, but because if it's yesterday, then maybe it's a little bit of a different story. Maybe your bullpen, you're running out of pieces that you want to use, but even then, still, we're 2 days into the season. I mean, there really shouldn't be much of a reason for that at this point. I agree. I don't understand the bullpen management there from Rocco Baldelli.
They went with 5 pitchers today. Varland and Topa are both guys that pitched on Thursday and then also pitched again in today's game. So we've seen quite a bit of that Twins bullpen through 2 games on the day, and then even too, you talk about seeing getting to see Duran for an inning in the game today, or at least getting to see him for, I think he went 4 batters, I think 4 or 5 batters today. You on Thursday's game, they went out and late in the game when it was still a close game, throw Griffin Jacks. And that's a guy that's supposed to be, again, one of their top bullpen guys from last year, and the Cardinals were able to hit him too. So that's a very solid bullpen for the Twins, or their top guys for the bullpen for the Twins, that the Cardinals have seen and have hit well. You're only going to see him 3 times this year, so Sunday you're done with the Twins for the rest of the season. Hey, if they're struggling right now, hit them hard and get those victories and send them on their way.
Yeah, and doing it in different ways, as I mentioned earlier. I think one of my favorite moments of the game was when Victor Scott laid down a bunt trying to get on base, trying to get creative with that speed, which I've been waiting intently to see. And he bunts it back to the pitcher. It was a one. I think the pitch came in at 102, and he bunted it back to the pitcher, and he still beat it out. I mean, who is this guy? This is unbelievable. The sprint speed came in at 31 feet per second, which is good for 30. Listen, I know we're 3 freaking days into the season, but that's already top 3 in the league, and that we're only going to see that all season long from Victor
Walker.
Scott.
Hey, yeah, we're 3 days into the season. Walker still has the hardest hit ball in the.
Yeah.
Nobody has topped the 116 that he hit the other day. So.
So we're only going to see more of that. We saw 2 stolen bases today from Victor Scott. I know that through the first couple of days, Mason Wynn still trying to find his bat after a rough spring training. You know, I still think that the 8-9 setup from Victor Scott and Mason Wynn is going to work really well for Mason, because with Victor Scott on base, guys are going to want to throw him more fastballs. So, and that's what he hits the best. You know, he had some struggles last year with chasing pitches. The more fastballs he gets, the better that's going to set him up. But when you have a guy like Victor Scott with that speed, he's going to be running all day long, all season long this year for the Cardinals. And that's going to set up, Mason Wynn well. It's going to set up the top of your lineup well. If Victor Scott can continue to be creative and finding ways to get on base, he doesn't have to bat 280. He doesn't have to bat 280. If you can be a smart, take smart at bats, keep that on base percentage looking solid, and finding different ways to get on base, then the Cardinals it's going to be a very top to bottom lineup for this Cardinals. You're not going to be leaning on 1 through 5 or 2 through 6. This has the potential to be a 1 through 9 lineup for the Cardinals.
This is Cards Hub Postgame, presented by Hot Shots. St. Louis's home for all the games, all the time. Since 1990, find yours at hotshotsnet.com. Just asked in the chat room, and I'll throw it up here on the screen for people to see, and head over to the YouTube chat. Want to know who your player of the game is for today? As we've talked about Eric Fedde, and we talked about the late at bats the Cardinals had in the game to put them up top and win 5-1 over the Twins. So, Ethan, I will ask you, as we wait for the chat to weigh in on more of theirs, who do you have for our player of the game today?
Boy, there's a couple of guys that you could throw into the mix for honorable mentions, but I mean, I think it has to be Eric Fedde, right? I mean, a lot of guys got involved on the offense. They end up picking up 10 hits for the second straight game. And the wealth was spread pretty evenly. Arenado, Herrera, and Scott and Nootbaar, all with 2 hits. So maybe not as evenly as I thought it was. But Eric Fedde was excellent today. Made some adjustments after that second inning. Looked really sharp. This is a guy that's going to force a lot of contact, and he did today. Eric Fedde, and like I said earlier in the show, Eric 73 going 6 innings, throwing 73 pitches. That's extremely impressive this early in the year. We get later into the season. I mean, even a few more weeks in, and he's throwing more than 6 innings at that number. But being able to get through 6 on only 73 pitches, efficient stuff today from the Cardinals' number 2 starter.
Yeah, that was my pick. As soon as they took him out of the game, as soon as the Cardinals then jumped into the lead, I immediately knew that Fedde was going to be my player of the game for how impressive he was today. And you look at those numbers down there, and those are ones that's going to catch the eye of the rest of Major League Baseball when you start to see some early season performances, and you start to see some guys that shine early in the season. Take, for example, I mean, the Nationals, Mackenzie Gore, the first game of the year for him was absolutely lights out for the Nationals. And then they take him out of the game and completely blow it after that. So for the Cardinals to come in the game, and then you go with Fernandez and JoJo and Phil Maton again, and having a very quick, effective 9th inning, you just you realize the weapons that you didn't use in the bullpen today, and the ones you still have, because you think you didn't use the best pitcher in the National League, Ryan Helsley. Chris Roycroft looked really, really good on Thursday. You still have other weapons out there in that bullpen. It's a deep bullpen that's going to make series like this fun to watch, because this is something interesting. Eric Sontag from Domesticated Gamblers here on Sports Hub STL throwing out the number. The Cardinals were 2-9 last year when having a chance to sweep a 3 or 4 game series. Think about that going into tomorrow. I'm not saying to play anything on that going into tomorrow, but something to watch and see how this team does in a potential sweep to start the year. Something, Ethan, I believe you're on the pregame show tomorrow morning, so it's something to look at when we see what the lineup is going to be. Well, that Ali Marmol puts out there for the game tomorrow,
and it goes to show why situations like the Cardinals being able to tack on 1 run in the bottom of the 8th in a game that they likely already have locked up. I have to imagine that the percentages had to be at least into the 90s at that point that they were going to win the ball game. But it goes to show how important being able to add on that extra insurance run was in that situation. Brendan Donovan, listen, we haven't talked at all about Brendan Donovan. I saw a stat earlier in the game, like through his first 7 at-bats of the season, that 5 of them had exit velos over 100 miles per hour to start off the year. Brendan Donovan has looked really good at the plate. This is going to be a guy that's is a contact animal. He's not going to strike out a lot, and hasn't struck out, I don't think, this year through the first 2 games yet, and is hitting the ball hard. For him to, once again, shows the Brant Brown ideology, the sac fly, forces that 5th run to come in. All of a sudden, Ryan Helsley doesn't have to pitch today, which he would have if they wouldn't have scored a run there. And now you have Ryan Helsley available tomorrow, has the chance to go out there and could, and potentially lock up a sweep for St. Louis. Those are the kind of things that a manager looks at and like licks his lips and is like, oh my gosh, that's huge. That's big time. But fans don't necessarily think about that all the time. Like they think about the wins and the losses, but they don't think about how the small things later in games that you may not win that day, but like still a move could impact how the next day goes. Those are the kinds of things that end up being really important throughout a season. And so it'll be interesting to see if that ends up playing to the Cardinals' advantage as they go for the sweep tomorrow.
Samuel House saying that Brendan Donovan, he's our secret weapon. I don't think it's a secret. I don't think Brendan Donovan, the legacy of Brendan Donovan right now is a secret around baseball. This is something we talked a lot about during the offseason. I have a feeling that there were a lot of calls that Mo made around baseball where he was trying to trade some of the guys that we still see on the team, like a Nolan Arenado, where it's, hey, you want to take him and his huge contract? No, but how about that Brendan Donovan guy? I have a feeling that probably happened more than once in some of these offseason calls for trades.
We know that, we have a good idea as to why the Cardinals haven't extended any of these young guys that are getting into getting into arbitration here a couple years in, that are several of them could be due for those extensions at this point. But we understand why with the transition of power next year with Heimblum taking over. It would not surprise me to see some of these guys next offseason get some extensions. If I am Mr. President of Baseball Operations, Brendan Donovan is the first guy that I am extending if I'm Heimblum, because the proof is in the pudding. Look what he has done the last couple of seasons. He has begun to transition, if not already transition into, now he is a clubhouse leader. He's starting to get into veteran status because there are still a lot of this organization, this club is still really young for the most part. So Brendan Donovan is, I think, going to be a really impactful piece for this Cardinals team for years to come. His ability to play all over the diamond has proven huge in his first couple of years with the Cardinals and will continue to as well. Love Brendan Donovan. Love the stuff that he has done here early in the season. And I hope that there's plenty. We're going to be saying that for a long time here in St. Louis.
All right, so we're going to wrap up our show for today. Ethan, I know that you have to get to watching the Blues game as you're on the Blues post game with Thomas Welch, currently in the first intermission, 1-1 Blues and Avalanche. That game in Colorado. So make sure to like and subscribe to the Sports Hub STL YouTube page so you get the notifications and you know when we go live for the Blues Hub post game to see if they will win 9 in a row tonight against the Avalanche. So for Ethan Hannaford, I'm Joe Roderick. This has been Cards Hub post game right here on Sports Hub STL.